I'm retired. I'm not dead yet. Live a little. That's a motto I like to live by. You know, my wife has called me tight sometimes. I've had friends that sometimes, in some cases, have said I'm cheap. But you know what? I heard recently that the ultra billionaire Warren Buffett's buddy, Charlie Munger, have you heard? Just passed away at 99. And I want to talk about that because he lived a long life of frugality. I saw interviews which suggested that he was contrary to most billionaires, where a lot of them like to live a bit of a lavish lifestyle. A lot of people that have that money end up buying expensive cars and yachts and planes and boats and the big house on the coast of Florida. And a lot of them spend their money to show they have that money. Whereas it sounded like, from what I understand, Munger did not show it. He wasn't all about cryptocurrency. He wasn't all about spending it on lavish items and expensive cars and boats. Rather, he was all about let the money work for you and find the lowest cost, most sensitive way to go about investing and spending your money or not spending your money. He was all about learning from other people's mistakes and avoiding that. That was all about it. Look, listen, touch, feel. Other people are making bad moves financially, and then you watch them lead by example, right? As they say, and often a lot of these people were going down in massive debt. And he learned from that, and he realized that I can learn from other people's mistakes. Why would I want to do the same thing? Rinse, lather, repeat, as they say. Groundhog Day, they say. Nope, don't want to do that. So he was living by the very idea of frugality alone, and avoiding costly mistakes is all it takes to become ultra rich. Now, I think there's always a little bit of luck. In my own personal opinion, you've got to have something to start with. You can't make money if you don't have money, ultimately. But there are some good decision making, and I do agree largely with what he's saying. Largely. Because now I want to touch on another viewer. Don Peace reached out and sort of called me out and said, you know what, all I'm doing is kind of walking and talking, and I'm not really sharing the fun and frivolity on a daily life. Well, I in fact want to start to proceed through 25, and I mentioned this before, how I do believe in some of Charlie Munger's attitudes about being cheap, because if you look after the pennies, they themselves look after the dollars. Or you say small leaks in a ship can sink a massive boat, right? So it's all the little expenses that can add up and absolutely sink that ship. I don't want to be there, and I've never lived that way. I've always believed instead of stepping into the dollar store, not. Because when you think you're going to spend $5 on some items, you come out of there, you just blew $50. It's clearly an indication of the way people spend these days. And I've never spent that way. Now, that being said, I'm not perfect. I have my vices. Cars, expensive cars. I've always driven expensive cars. You know for a fact, I coined the phrase, life's too short to drive boring cars, right? Because it came from a place of passion. Now, it also came from a place of less experience in life. It also came from a place of a little bit more frivolous expenditures, but it also came from a place where I had time in front of me, you see. I had time. I started those phrases, I started that attitude when I was probably 15, 20 years ago. And realistically, I'm a little bit more mature now. Now, that being said, I still do believe in those concepts because I think life has to find a balance. And where you look at somebody like Charlie Munger, I don't personally know him. I do know often people that go that far off the deep end with absolute frugality, they usually often giving up all of their fun along the way. And I truly believe life is meant to live. Now, as I retire, or as I'm retired in these years here, I'm going to share more of my experiences. And I want to do so as to Don's comment there about how I'm not showing any of this. And I really do want to show some of the things that I'm doing on a regular basis. I mean, look at this. Naturalization provides benefits for us all. Gorgeous. This is a beautiful little spot now, isn't it? That is absolutely nice. Gorgeous. Anyway, but the bottom line is I want to start talking in 2025 about some of the things that I like to do. And I'm going to share some of that visually. I'm going to still give you the background, some of the concepts, because I truly believe, survival in retirement is a challenge. It has to be strategic. You have to plan it. You have to have the foundation, ultimately a bit of bankroll and some good planning along the way are all key ingredients to success in retirement. But I want to share something that I've got coming up. Now, it's something that I've expressed time and time again, certainly, where I truly believe that you need to find the balance. And I am super cheap. I am super frugal. I openly admit that. And when I look at somebody like Charlie Munger, not to judge because he's a billionaire and I'm certainly not, I do have to think, because I know people like that, that were ultra frugal and really resisted the urge to spend in any way that would make, life enjoyable. Now, he lived to 99. I'm not sure what sort of things an individual would have seen or done in his lifetime. That's a long time ago. So he has seen a lot. And maybe his upbringing from obviously being around 99 years, he's seen some tragic things in his life. And maybe some of those were the very incidents that sort of triggered his approach and his attitudes about spending or not spending. Absolutely. What we see is certainly how we often react in certain ways. Now, with that said, I do want to show more of what I'm doing. I want to talk about a little bit more, because if all I do is talking about this and I'm not showing on a day-to-day basis some of the things that I'm doing, I'm not going to share everything. I mean, let's face it, not every day is sunshines and rainbows and all kinds of goodness like that. It's not a big parade every single day. There are days that are going to be boring and ho-hum, and we have a lot of snow here, so winter's a little bit more drab, but I like to get out, and I often use winter for other projects. I like to do maintenance on cars in the house, so it's never without something to do, but it's not always about skiing or necessarily taking that road trip. That being said, this last year has been a really, really tough year and a trying year, of course, for me in a lot of ways, and a lot of reasons why I haven't necessarily gone all in. But that said, in 24, I was dealing with the loss of my parents, putting their house up for sale, cleaning the place, and going through all those processes, of course, the legalities, working now on taxes. So it's been a year, an absolute trying year in so many ways, just to try to get through the year. It's been very busy. Of course, I lost my job, lost a friend, and you know what? I can't even tell you where to begin and where to end as far as the challenges and sort of the difficulty in navigating, my own personal mental health. And we all talk about, everybody has their things, whether it's anxiety or depression. And certainly I've had my ups and downs. I talked about things that, I no longer cared about that I once did. That's an up and down. And a lot of you responded in a great way, a real supportive way that suggested a lot of that comes and goes, and a lot of it's based on depression or short-term depression. Now, I don't disagree with that at all, and I see some of the things I was dealing with, and this is part of the journey. This channel is designed to talk about from tip to tail the idea of entering retirement, or some like to say I'm semi-retired, and I've got a side hustle that generates a little revenue, but ultimately I'm retired. I don't have a boss. I don't have a paycheck. I don't have to beg for forgiveness or ask for a day off. I just come and go as I like. So I'm retired as far as I'm concerned, but I've got a side hustle that keeps me active and busy and entertained, and certainly helps close in some financial gaps for me as well. But that year, 2024, was such a trying year. And I was just trying to keep my head above water for the entire year from end to end. And we're still not quite done. I mean, we still have to file taxes here coming up soon. We have to get total closure on, my parents' affairs. So at the end of the day, it's never really over. You constantly find yourself navigating life in different ways. But if there's one thing I want to share, if you look at 24, we did some great trips. We had some great holidays, and I didn't share them on screen because, because of the kind of rebound I was dealing with and going through, personal issues, and I was still sort of challenged with a lot of the, the losses in my life. And granted, I probably should have talked about that a little more depth, but I really did need to isolate a little bit from that. So I didn't share a lot of our trips. We did a bunch of trips, in the RV. We did a bunch of trips, local trips, to the mountains, to other cities, just little road trips for a weekend here, weekend there. We did a big trip, of course, to Las Vegas. We flew in there for 4 days. We had a great time there. That was a wonderful weekend. And of course, we did another big road trip for 2 weeks where we hit California. We did Los Angeles, San Diego, checked out the zoo, went to Disneyland. We did all of those things, and all of us had a wonderful time. We also stopped in Vegas on our way back because it was all a road trip. And you see, I'm also a believer in living life as if it were a journey, not just fly in, fly out. I've talked about that whole idea, same thing, right? Flying into Mexico, enjoy your 2 weeks or your week, fly back. To me, it's more about the journey the days each and every day getting there, enjoying every day. Because even that road trip to California and Vegas that we did, we drove all the way from Alberta all the way down to Southern California. And I'll be honest, it's a long haul, but I love it. Every mile of that trip is absolutely memorable for me. I've always loved it. We've done that drive probably 20 times in my life already, and I plan to do many more. I just love that drive, and we try to navigate, whether sometimes we go Pacific Coast Highway if we got a little more time to burn, or sometimes we just beeline it right through Salt Lake City and all the way down into Vegas and LA. Whatever it is, we always make our way in a different way, stop at different spots, and enjoy it along the way. Take our time, stop for a whiz break, take a look at the scenery, and just really enjoy every single minute. See, that's what life is about, and that's what my retirement's about. And thanks, Don, out there, to sort of call me out on that, because that's perfect. I really do agree with the idea. It's easy to talk about it, and I do like talking about it, because this is the day-to-day. I can't always be out doing these big dynamic things, but I get it. I do want to share a little bit more of those, even tidbits. And for a little bit more information, there is a very, very interesting car I have coming to the channel. I've spoken about this briefly. Now, I purchased this back when I was still employed, and I didn't really have the foresight to think that I would have been retired shortly thereafter, but I was. So basically, I bought a car, signed the paperwork, put the money aside for it, and guess what? It showed up. Now, it's over at the dealership, and I want to share some of those experiences with each and every one of you. Now, this is coming from a place of, remember, this is not about, the Joneses or trying to do any of that, because I've never cared about that. I don't care what people think. I don't care what people think my daily driver. It's an old Dodge Ram. I don't care. When I buy these cars, it's because I enjoy cars. And, as they say, life's too short to drive boring cars. So in this case, this was a bit of a showcase for me. See, because I kind of knew that the delivery time on this car would be in that 2 to 3 year range. And that would have plopped me right smack dab at 55, you see. So when I ordered it, I kind of anticipated, I knew the weight, what it would look like. And I sort of expected that my retirement age was going to be about 55. I've spoken about this in other videos, that even if I didn't get canned at 53, I would have retired at 55 anyway. And instead of trading off the, getting the hat and the barbecue and the, $22 watch that they grabbed on their way out of 7-Eleven, instead of having that, the trade-off was they made it happen. They probably didn't realize I was considering. But you know what? At the end of the day, here I am, and the car is showing up. I'll be turning 55 toot sweet. And it's just could not have timed out better. We have the car showing up to the channel. And the reason I want to show this and talk about this a little bit is because it's important. Not the car, who cares? For me, the car is important, but it's more about the idea. It's the concept. Why is this important? What's important is to understand that it doesn't matter if it's a car, a boat, a motorcycle, maybe none of that. Maybe nothing is that at all. Maybe you want to do a West Coast trail hike. Maybe you want to do skydiving. Maybe there's some bucket list items that need to hit your radar. Make it. That's all I'm going to say. See, for me, this was a bit of a showcase and a celebration of 55 and ultimately the years of service I put into the work environment. That was my plan. Say, look, I'm retiring at 55. I started working at, 15 on and off part-time jobs. That's 40 years I've been working on and off, of course. First few years was part-time. And naturally after that, it was transitioned into full-time work after schooling. But realistically, I just wanted it to be a celebration and just wanted to showcase something through all the efforts that I put in, something for myself. Do it for me. That's my own way to celebrate. And naturally, do it in a way with an experience that I never would have dreamed of. I am truly humbled by the opportunity, by this experience, because buying this car isn't just buying a car like every other car. There's quite a process And they also keep you sort of in a position where you don't really know if you're in or you are. And it's sort of unnerving and a little bit just all over the map. Let's put it that way. You just don't really know if you're in or not. And so it's a really, really rewarding experience. I found it really exciting. I want to share some of that information. Certainly, I want to share with you this car that I plan to be bringing home here within the next week or so. I want to share that experience with all of you because it is important to me, not the car itself, but the idea that, even though we're in retirement and I'm in retirement, I did plan accordingly. I planned out my retirement, got the pension stuff lined up, but the car was sort of pre-planned. The cash was set aside. We had that allocated. And so this is really more about finding that balance. Charlie Munger, did he find that balance or not? I'm not sure. I had an uncle many years ago that was ultra frugal. And I talked about him before. One of the most inspiring guys too, because he grew up on a farm. He was a farmer through and through. And he had a lot of wealth and he'd never show it. He had, an older truck. But he had a lot of properties, rental, walk-ups, houses, businesses, you name it. And he made his own wealth, not because he wanted to be rich, but he lived very much like Charlie Munger, of kind of this concept and this idea that if the money's not working for you, it's working against you. Because if you're out buying all this stuff that doesn't make money, if you can't rent out this property, if you can't turn this business into a revenue generating operation, if you can't flip this used car and make $1,000, everything else is a loss. And that's the way he saw it. And so I've been living my entire life like that. Everything is frugal. If I don't need it, I'm not buying it. I don't need that. I don't need that. I don't need a trip to the dollar store. If I go sit out in a restaurant, I might be the least fun guy sometimes out at the restaurants with you, because I'm not the one double-fisted drinking. I'm not the one buying all kinds of drinks for myself at $8 a beverage. If you do that every time you go out, that adds up to a lot of money. I've always lived a very frugal lifestyle with one key exception, and that's my vice. And that one I make no bones about. I make no exceptions, and I certainly don't apologize. My wife told me that. My wife, she's not one to watch me blow money. She doesn't like me blowing money all over the place, and that's good because I generally don't. But when I talked about the car and discussed about should I bring it to the channel, she said, you need to talk about that because it's important to you and you've worked really hard for it. My wife has been super supportive, just behind me the entire duration, beside me, you name it. She's been there, a major support structure for me through this last year of challenges, but also with the car. She's saying, you've worked very, very hard for it, very hard. It's not an easy task, and you've done it. So my key takeaway here is I do want to share a little bit more of what we're doing this year. I want to share a little bit more of some of those fun experiences. Those experiences won't be on a daily, but I will share daily chats. We will talk more. And certainly I will share kind of my interpretation of what retirement should look like, at least in my opinion. You do have to plan for it. It's not easy. There are sacrifices. Lord knows I've made mine. But with that said, if you do it right, play some cards and you have some luck, like I certainly had some luck on my side, maybe the cards will turn in your favor. Anyway, I really hope to see each and every one of you in the next one. See you real soon. Bye-bye.